Namaste.
Namaste.
Good evening, friends. We're so happy to be sharing with you this evening on our Living Wisely, Living Well series. And we have a very, very interesting topic from Swamiji's book today. It's Love All with the Joy of Giving Love. And for the joy of giving love, I should say. And it's a very important concept because, as Swami goes on to say in the reading for today, if we love people only for their human traits, some of them are not very lovable. But if we realize that there's the simple joy of giving love is in and of itself worth the doing. And I remember over the years watching Swami Kriya. So he's such a beautiful example of this because he had a challenging life. There were many people who tried to hurt him, tried to undermine what he was doing. Such was his karma. But he, in all circumstances, he never returned their animosity with the similar energy. He said, I choose to love them no matter how they treat me because I am simply happier when I love. And this was such a wonderful role model for us. And again, it helps to take it out of the realm of just someone earns our love because they have done something that pleases us. But it comes back to a perspective of we should be sources of love because that is our nature. It is the very nature of our being, of our consciousness to want to share love. I wanted to read from Autobiography of a Yogi, one of my favorite passages, although it's hard to say which is more favorite than another. But this is from Master talks about an experience in cosmic consciousness. And as if you remember, this is where he's in Sri Yukteswar's ashram, and he keeps pleading with his guru, Sri Yukteswarji, to give him an experience of cosmic consciousness. And Sri Yukteswar keeps kind of deferring, putting him off. And then one day he calls him. And it's interesting because Master was upstairs meditating, and Sri Yukteswar calls him down and says, Mukunda, and he doesn't answer. And then he calls him again, and he said, I'm meditating. And his guru, as all gurus do, know the innermost thoughts of the disciple. And he says, I know how you are meditating, with your thoughts being cast about like leaves in the autumn wind. And then chastened Master came down to his guru, and then he said, I have a gift for you today. And he tapped him lightly on the chest. And then he had the experience that he had been seeking throughout this lifetime. Clearly, as an avatar, he had had this experience in many lifetimes. But for our benefit, these great ones play out the drama of seeking God, seeking cosmic consciousness. And so then Master describes it in this passage that I'll share with you. An oceanic joy broke upon calm, endless shores of my soul. The Spirit of God, I realized, is exhaustless bliss. His body is countless tissues of light. A swelling glory within me began to envelop towns, continents, the earth, solar and stellar systems, tenuous nebulae, and floating universes. The entire cosmos, gently luminous, like a city seen afar at night, glimmered within the infinitude of my being. I cognized the center of the Imperium as a point of intuitive perception in my heart. And when I first read that passage many years ago, and have subsequently read it often over the years, it never ceases to amaze me, and I can't say that by any means I grasp the full significance of it. but simply the thought that the center of all creation is a point of intuitive perception within the human heart. This is something to really contemplate and meditate on and try to get a greater understanding of. Because if we think of love as something that is only a reactive process due to the conditions around us, if someone is nice, we love them. If they're not nice, we withhold our love or withdraw our love. This isn't love. True love is the center of all creation. So we have within us this compass that always can point us in the right direction. So often people ask, well, there's a difficult person at work, or my relatives are very difficult, or whatever it might be, and I don't know what I should do. We always have this point of inner guidance within our own heart. Because if all of creation, as all the great spiritual teachers of every religion have told us, if the point of all creation is divine love, then that dwells, the source of it is a point of perception within every human heart. And from there, we can find the answers of how do I relate to this difficult person? How do I express love in the highest possible way to someone who is very near and dear to me? How do I express it in such a way that it is a pathway to God, consciousness, and union with God? I remember Swami telling a story that happened to him. I believe it was before he founded Ananda. I believe it took place in the few years before he began working on Ananda in 1967, 68. And at this point, he was really just on his own. He didn't have many students. He was really, it was a challenging period in his life. And he was driving one day to give a class, and he saw a man hitchhiking along the side of the road. And Swami said, for some reason, I felt to pick up this fellow. And so he stopped the car and picked him up. And the man started giving him a hard luck story. Oh, my wife is sick, and I can't feed my children, and on and on. And if you could just give me a little bit of money, then I would so appreciate it. And Swami got out his wallet and he opened it. He didn't have much to his name, but he gave the man half of what he had. And the man said, before getting out, he said, give me your name and address, because I want to be sure to get this back to you, because I don't want you to lose faith in human nature. And Swami, with impersonal wisdom, said, if I would have had faith in human nature, I would have lost it long ago. I give this to you because I have faith in God. And whether you return it or not, God will see that I get it back. And that was such a very interesting example to think about, that if we only predicate our giving love on the thought, will I get this back in return, life is very disappointing. But if we just simply give love with the thought, I have no expectation. If this comes back to me, I'm very happy. If it doesn't come back to me, it will come in another way. And this is such a wonderful way. It produces so much freedom in life, so much release of expectations that the world will make you happy, because this world is not constructed to make us happy. Do you remember, if you've read Swami Kriyanandaji's autobiography, The New Path, he talks about when they were with our Guru Yoganandaji, and they were they were working on this beautiful park and garden that Master created outside of Los Angeles called Lake Shrine. And it's built around a beautiful lake, and there's swans, and they very beautifully done. And it's in sort of a canyon, so there are a lot of trees and plants. And when they were, it was so beautiful, but as they were working there, there were all these little gnats, little insects, and they were flying in their eyes and in their ears and really being very irritating. And Swamiji said to Master, why in such an idyllic place as this do we have to have these little gnats that are so troublesome? And Master said, and it's a lesson for all of us in many circumstances, if God didn't create these, we wouldn't keep moving towards him. So in other words, if we found perfection in this life, in this world, in our life experiences, why would we seek something else? But this life is constructed, so it's just always a little bit not to our expectations. And so when we're speaking of giving love to all for the joy, simple joy of giving, not because their human traits merit it, this is very appropriate to think in these terms. Now, let's think a little bit. Let's stop and think about different qualities of human relationships. Because first of all, there's the relationship with people that we just have a simple, nice friendship with. Not particularly close, but perhaps a neighbor, a distant relative, someone you work with at work, and there's a nice positive energy there. Well, this is perhaps the easiest of circumstances in giving love because there aren't a lot of expectations. But to remember that you're being a channel for love. And so everyone you meet, rather than evaluating them, well, they have this many good qualities and this many bad qualities, but just to say, I give love, just to all, impersonally, because I find joy in doing that. I remember some years ago at Ananda village, there was a woman there who was very difficult to get along with. She was always, just causing kind of conflict between people. And I remember feeling in my heart that I kind of wanted to avoid her because she had a acerbic personality. And then one evening we were having a celebration, and as part of the celebration we did an arati, and we offered the different items up to the images of the Guru, and then on a nice little tray we had the incense and Ganga water and different items, and then we went to, and a light, a candle, we went to each of the people present and let them absorb the light after we had offered it to the Gurus. And when I came, I was carrying the tray around, and when I came to this woman who was very irritable and causing conflict, I remember my first reaction was a slightly negative one. But then when I held the tray to her to take the light, I was overwhelmed by how much God loved her. And I could feel, because I was trying to be an intermediary, one might say, between the light and that person, I could feel God's love flowing from me, through me, I should say, through me to her. And it was a very powerful experience because on a human level, I wasn't feeling that. But on a divine level, I felt how much God loved her. And it really was a life-changing experience for me. And so with the people in your life that there isn't a lot of interaction with, as I say, try just to be a channel of impersonal love. And it's such a tiresome activity to be having to evaluate everybody all the time. Are they worthy of my friendship? Are they worthy of my love? In a sense, no one is worthy of our love until they become one with God. But in another sense, everyone is worthy of our love because they are a child of God, and God loves them absolutely, unconditionally. So then that's one level of people we interact with. Another level is people that we actually have difficulties with, that we can feel there's a conscious animosity or undermining. Often, I know in the workplace, there are people, it's very competitive, and people are trying to undermine each other and that sort of thing. Well, it's very, very important in those circumstances not to be drawn into their animosity, no matter what they do. It's not that you just say, oh yes, take my job, oh yes, falsify my documents, whatever it might be. Not to be naive and foolish, but at the same time, we can maintain our own center. I remember reading a story from one of Master's disciples in America, and this woman was told the story that there was another woman who worked in the office with her, and this woman was jealous of her and was always trying to undercut her and undermine her. But the woman telling the story said, I made up my mind to only give love, no matter what she gave me towards me. And then actually years went by, and at a certain point, this jealous woman came up to the woman telling the story and said, you know, I had so much animosity and jealousy toward you, but I have to say, all you ever showed me was divine love and friendship. And it changed something in my own heart. And I want to thank you for the example that you showed me of how to reflect back only the highest quality. And then finally, another category of giving love is those people that we do care about on a deep level, our close friends, our spouses, our children, that sort of thing, parents, and people that there is a genuine, fulfilling human relationship with. And that's not to say that any relationship is without its flaws, but because that's the nature of delusion of this world. But nevertheless, things that are basically positive and basically a source of joy and upliftment in our lives. Well, remember, don't stop there. Take it to the next level. In the very beautiful wedding ceremony that Swami Kriya wrote that we use for Ananda weddings, the last two lines of the vows that the couple getting married say to each other are, and through our perfect love to find the perfect love of God. And that's the point. We need to perfect our love, not because we will be together forever and ever. One way or another, we are separated by death, by whatever circumstances happen, but to perfect our love so that it always reflects kindness, consideration, thoughtfulness for the other person, not just lost in your own thoughts and your own projects, but ever embracing the other person's reality. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't feel like I'm growing spiritually. Well, perhaps they should look at their relationship with the people in their lives and say, am I giving? Am I being a channel of divine love to those nearest and dearest to me? Because if we're not, that's a block between us and God. And so to really use the love we have for each other as a stepping stone for more and more experience of what is the true nature of God's love. And He gives us the dear ones in our life, not as ends in and of themselves, but so that we can get a little reflection of what the perfect love of God is. And when we can do that, we have solved one of the great mysteries of this universe and the reason for which we were born, to discover that point of intuitive perception of divine joy within us that is fulfilled. And we can be a channel of love to everyone we meet, and in the process feel the unlimited joy of God's bliss flowing through us. I'm going to pass the mic over to Jyotish now.
Thank you, Devi. That was beautiful, as always. I want to talk a couple of things about personal love and impersonal love. I'll start with impersonal love, and then I want to talk also about some specific ways we can love more completely, more broadly, and love everyone. But let me start first talking a little bit impersonally. Swami always suggested that we should learn not only personal love, but impersonal love. And what he meant by that is that there is just a vibration of love, a power of love. Once when I was just starting on the spiritual path, I had a kind of a vision in meditation that was very important to me at that time. I think it probably came because of past lives of meditating. But as I was meditating, I saw it was as if this was the primordial atom. It wasn't the physical atom, but this was the structure of the universe. And it was a beautiful rainbow diaphanous globe, like a soap bubble, but more beautiful than that. But holding it together was a kind of a spiral staircase or spiral like the DNA molecule that came down as an axis to it. And I realized that the essence of that spiral was love, was God's love. And it was that core that held the bubble, the atomic bubble, one might say, of the universe together. And so at the core of every atom was this power of love. And that was the force that united everything, that held it together. After all, love is that force which brings disparate elements together. People, even you see love expressed so beautifully in the animal kingdom. Master talked about instinctual love of the parents for the child. And you see many modern movies, some beautiful movies. Planet Earth is a documentary that has beautiful scenes of nature. But one of the themes going through that is this not only love, but sometimes such noble love that the parent, especially the mother, is willing to sacrifice her own life out of love for her children. There was a beautiful story that we heard of, not a very pleasant story, but beautiful, of the aftermath of a forest fire in California. And it was a devastating fire where the whole forest and all the brush and trees had been completely burned. And there was a ranger walking through this devastation, and he heard a little chirping noise, and he didn't quite understand how there could be anything left alive. And then he looked, and there was the kind of burnt husk of a little bird, a mother bird, and underneath her wing, she had sheltered her little chicks, and they were still alive. And so she obviously offered her own life out of the desire to save those little chicks. Now, one can say that, well, she didn't really love in the way we love. It was just instinctual. But see, I'm talking about impersonal love. Impersonal love isn't mental. It isn't of our thought. It's just a power. It's the power that sustains the universe. So impersonal love is just there. It's like prana, one could say, which is the energy. In fact, it's part of prana, the energy that sustains the whole of the universe, the created universe. And that power is there. It gets then expressed as love of the parents or the mother to the child of the lover. That's why we begin our prayer, beloved Lord, I worship you in the Father, the Mother, the friend, and the beloved. And we pray that way at the beginning of all our meditations, just to remind us that God, Divine Mother, is coming to us as the father, the mother, the friend, the beloved, as everything, and the highest love on that impersonal but personalized sense is the love of the guru, because he doesn't have any limitations. But so if we can try to get in touch with that foundation of love before it gets expressed personally to this person and that person, to this thing and that thing, and work on, especially in meditation, trying to feel in our heart, because that's the area, the Anahata chakra is the area of feeling, to feel in the heart almost like a benevolent glow that is not going to be stopped by anything in form. So in that way, we can love those who hate us even, because as Swami said, we're happier when we give love than when we don't. But in meditation especially, we can try to get in touch deeply with that impersonal love, because it is a foundational force of the universe. When we finally get it to the human level, when we think of loving another human being, we think of, oh, I like this person, I don't like that person, this person was nice to me, therefore I will love them. Or we don't even think in terms of those qualities. We just think of a person and we love that person. But I actually had a meditation and I counted, and this is a little odd. I have a quirky mind, so let's face it, I do these odd little things. But I counted that kind of love expressed to a person is done because that's the way we perceive that person through the senses. So when you think of a person, you think of the image of that person that you see or that you hear. And so you think of that person in terms of what your senses tell you that person is. Well, as I say, I counted that image of a person, of the sight and sound and what we think of if we visualize a person. I counted 10 steps removed from this basic impersonal force of love that binds everything together. So there's the human body, but the human body is made up of the organs and the muscles and the various parts of the human body. That's two. They're made up of cells, and the cells are made up of the aspects of the cells. So that's four. The cells themselves and aspects, the different things are made up of molecules, those are made up of atoms, subatomic particles, and so on, until you get down to what is really creating the universe is a vibration of consciousness that underlies energy, that underlies all these layers of forms. And by the time you get up to, I like this person, as I say, you're 10 steps removed from that sea of universal love. So at least in meditation, we need to try to get back in touch with that sea of universal love, because it has absolutely no limitations. And when we can touch into that in meditation, then during our outer daily life, where we're seeing people and we're judging them according to their actions or their behavior or whatever they're doing, and we're kind of reacting, I like this person, I don't like that person, I love this person, I don't love that person. In that reactive state, as I say, we're 10 steps removed from the impersonal but personal love of God for everything and everyone in the universe. So try to tap into that in meditation, and then try to feel it more and more throughout the day. I don't think that we can entirely be satisfied, however, by just impersonal love. The human heart longs for the love expressed directly to us as individuals. There's a beautiful Ras Leela of Krishna and the gopis, But what that represents is the divine and the yearning of the individuals, in this case the gopis, to have the divine love them particularly and individually. And we all have that. It's a beautiful story, not interpreted the way that it so often is, but it's a beautiful expression of the divine loving everything, but also specifically loving each one of us. Master, as a great avatar, had this desire. It's not a wrong desire to have that personalized love. When he lost his mother, she was the expression of that love in his life. And he had this deep loss, deep sense of bereavement and grieving that lasted for a long time when his mother passed, because he didn't know how he would ever find that beautiful expression of love again in this world. But being who he was, he wanted that and wanted it. And then finally, when he had a beautiful vision, he was always seeking the Divine Mother. And his mother represented that, but he was seeking the Divine Mother and seeking. And then he had a beautiful vision in which he was meditating on the eyes of his earthly mother. And then he saw thousands of pairs of eyes, and those were the eyes of Divine Mother. And she said to him, I have loved you through many mothers, through many earthly mothers, but it was always I who loved you. And so it was a beautiful play there between our desire for the personal love, in this case of the mother, but also the divine mother that is beyond any individual expression. But our hearts won't be satisfied. Let's face it, we're in this world because we have some remaining ego to overcome. And the ego is that which separates us. And so we think of ourselves as an individual being that's separate from others. We don't think of ourselves as the impersonal expression of the divine unless we're at a very high level of consciousness. We think of ourselves as an individual, and therefore we want to find that love of the divine in an individual form. And so we keep seeking that. But the thing to remember in this is what I'm getting at in this part of my talk about impersonal love, is that we need to, at least intellectually, and then more and more in terms of actual experience, to understand that any personal expression of love is actually the divine that is acting through the lens of that individual. And when we can really begin to feel that, then we can overcome most of the likes and dislikes that we have, because we realize that if it's the divine that's loving us through all the people that we meet, it's also the divine who is acting perhaps in ways that we don't particularly like through others. Jesus said that you should love your enemies, not only your friends and loved ones. He, in fact, said, do not about loving your family, loving those who are close to you. He said, do not the taxpayers do the same? Taxpayers, the tax collectors, who were kind of the reviled of society, because at that time they represented the grasping nature of the Roman Empire, the suppressing nature, and so everybody hated them. But he said, do not, even the tax collectors, love those who are close to them. So he's saying, love everyone, including loving your enemies. And so if we can get in touch with that impersonal love, with the sense that Divine Mother is the actor behind all the roles that are being played, then it at least gives us a bridge to begin to say, for those people who push our buttons, because that's where our love gets stopped. It's easy. Swami, one time he was, I think at a wedding, he was saying to the couple, oh, it's easy to love everyone in the world. It's the difficult part, are loving those who are close to you and those who irritate you. And so he was saying to the married couple, you have to not only love impersonally, but you have to love personally. And we do. We have to translate that impersonal, oh, I love everyone in the world, and then react to the loss. We react to someone who says something nasty to us. And we hate that person. Well, that isn't universal love. So how do you overcome that tendency? It's just the reactive nature that we have. One of the ways, obviously, is through the practice of Kriya Yoga, where we try to control that reactive process. But when it kicks off, when we feel a sense of reaction or a sense of dislike or a sense of distancing and pushing away and judgment or jealousy or whatever the negative qualities, it helps at that time, if we can, to say, I may not love the actions of that person or the personality that that person is demonstrating, but I love Divine Mother, I love God, who is manifesting as that person. Remember that when we react to someone, we react to just a very tiny, tiny slice of who that person really is. Somebody, let's say you go into the office and somebody shouts at you and you get mad at them and you shout back. And you think, I really dislike this person. Well, you're seeing that person at that moment, maybe 2 minutes out of one, their entire life in this life, but that soul has incarnated over and over and over and over again. If you saw that soul in the next life, and you in this life you think you really hate them, in that next life you wouldn't even remember that. They might be your brother or your sister, and you would love them. Still, there might be some tension because of the karma of the past. But see, we freeze on the local time limited expression of the vastness of a soul, and that's what we're reacting to. So one of the ways to overcome it is just to say, I may not like the way this person is acting at this particular time, but his actions, the actions of this person, that's not who this person really is. This person is the infinite soul who has lived for thousands, perhaps millions of lifetimes, and beneath that reincarnational cycle is Divine Mother herself. And it's that we should try to love. Now, as we're able to do that, we are able to act in a different way in daily circumstances. This was part of the power of Swami Kriyananda, is that he had developed this, first of all, the love that he had given and felt that he received with Divine Mother. He had developed that sufficiently so that his heart was very soft, very open, and I don't think he was capable of hating a person. I know he wasn't capable of hating a person. I don't think he was capable of even disliking a person. That's not to say that he was naive and didn't recognize when somebody was acting incorrectly, but he never returned that incorrect action with anything other than love. Partly because he knew that if that person was acting badly, that the reason that they were doing those actions was there was some darkness or ignorance in them. Maybe it was jealousy. Often people who act badly act that way because they're jealous, or they're afraid, or there's some fear, or there's insecurity, all of those reasons. And then they act out in order to prop themselves up. Well, if you react to that person acting out, all you do is further their reactive nature in that particular way. If, however, even in the midst of someone attacking you, you can respond with love. Maybe it's strength also, but respond with love. And if you can respond with love, then that neutralizes the energy of attack. As this beautiful poem of St. Francis is, where there is hatred, let me sow love. Now that's not impersonal, where there's some hatred in the world, I'll sow love. Where there's hatred directed toward me, or anger, or some negative quality directed toward me, let me sow love in return for that. Now this is sometimes very difficult to do, because some people can really, really push our buttons. And that's not to say that their actions are correct. It's a fallacy to say, oh, I'll only love those who act properly, because you have to recognize that the actions are often incorrect. But try to love that person in any case. As that begins to happen, there begins to develop almost like this diaphanous bubble that I was talking about. There begins to, it's a little dry in here. There begins to develop in your consciousness a sense of benevolent kindness and active desire to give kindness, to give well wishes, to do whatever you can to help whoever comes in front of you. Swami had this beautiful quality, but he also then expressed it. So it wasn't just universal, it was universal, but then it has to get expressed individually. And so he had this universal love. Well, that's beautiful, but how did he express it? When he would go into a store, he would express it as immediate kindness and a sense of friendship with the clerk in the store. And so he would begin to talk with the person. He would begin to take an interest in that person and what they did. I was with him one time in New York. This was an amazing example. We were at a conference, and he at that time had developed a number of his songs, and for the first time the Sony Walkman came out. So you can date that. There's like I don't know, in the early 80s, I think, maybe even 70s. At any rate, the first Sony Walkmans, which represented a high quality sound from a little cassette that you could carry around. And so we had a booth at this kind of spiritual conference, and he had cassettes of his music, and he wanted people to hear that music in this beautiful sound that the Sony Walkman was able to produce. So he went into a store and he wanted to buy one. Now that was the interaction. He just went in, he wanted to buy it, and he began talking with the person who was the proprietor of the store. You know, what model should I get? What kind? Do they need earphones with them, and so on? And after discussing it with this person, soliciting his help, being very kind in return, thanking him, probably lasted 5 or 10 minutes, and he bought one of these Sony cassettes. The next day, he had a question. He went back in, talked with this fellow again for maybe 10 minutes or so, and then got his question answered, and that was it. The amazing thing is that on the day we were leaving, which was the third day, the man saw Swami in the hallway because we were about to leave, and he came out of his shop and came rushing up and said, "Oh, are you leaving? Are you leaving? Oh, please come into my shop." And so Swami did, and the man actually was weeping when Swami left. He said, "I feel like you're my closest friend." Now that was after 2 interactions of about 10 minutes each. But that's universal love expressed personally to that person. And so take the love that you feel in meditation, express it personally to everybody that comes into your life. If you do that today, do it tomorrow, and really try to practice this as a conscious exercise in, think of it as a sadhana of tuning in to the divine love of Divine Mother and giving that as a gift to everybody that you meet. If you consciously practice that, the sense of love will grow and grow in you. The sense of magnetism that surrounds that will draw people to you who are hungry for love, and you will be loved by absolutely everyone you come in contact with, as was Swami, as was Master. It's our job to emulate those great souls. So, God bless you all.